Okay, this video is for those of you who missed class today. I think it's the 14th, right? Pi Day here at TVT. And so we've got two, and this is just kind of a review of what we did yesterday. So we've got two claims of whether Yeush Shalomidat, that principle exists, or whether it does not exist. Rava says, yes, it does exist. Abaye says it doesn't. So what is, for question number one today, what is the story that Rava is claiming in this case? And so try to write that out. And just as a review, Rava basically is saying the following. Rava is saying, oh, here's the story. A person loses this money between 1 and 2 o'clock. The finder finds it around 3 o'clock. But the loser doesn't realize that it's gone until 4 o'clock. And so the question is it allowed for the finder if the loser has if the loser doesn't know it's gone? And Rava says, oh, of course it is, because the loser is going to do the act of Yeush, or is going to call that money Hefker. And because of that, because he calls it Hefker, even though it's an hour later, it's as if he had actually called it Hefker before the finder found it, or at the moment that the finder found it. So that's what that actually, that's not a question since I just answered it for you. But what is Abaye going to say? How is Abaye going to challenge this? And how does he use the specifics of our relationship with money to answer this in a way to show that Hefker actually happens. The Hefker of the loser happens before the finder finds it. That's question number two. And then we had a similar case right here, but now instead of money, it's a loaf of bread. So again, question number three should be, tell me the story that Rava is making about this bread and how it shows Yeush Shalomidat. And then question number four should be, tell me what Abaye is going to try to do and how he uses the fact of a particular characteristic of bread itself to help us see that the loser is not actually declaring Hefker so late in the game, but is actually doing that earlier than when the finder finds it. That's question number four. Then we move to our next Tashma. We're doing the same thing with Lishonot Shel Argaman, or strips of purple cloth or flax. Again, tell me Rava's story here, and then tell me how Abaye is going to show that it's actually not true using a characteristic of the purple flax as well. Great. And now really this brings us to our topic of the day, which is a Tashma number 6. Remember, there are 12 Tashmas. This is Tashma number 6. And it begins with the word, the one thing we need to know is the following. We need to know this rule from the Torah that says, when you reap, it's talking to an Israelite farmer, when you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not reap all the way to the edges of your field, or gather the gleanings of your harvest. You shall not pick your vineyard bare, or gather the fallen fruits of your vineyard. You shall leave them for the poor and the stranger, because I am God. And so this idea, from this verse in the Torah, we get the idea that actually, when you have a field that you are harvesting, the corners of the field do not belong to you. The corners of the field are peah. The peah of your field belong to the poor people. So actually, those poor people have a right to that, and you don't have a right to that. There's also another thing that poor people have a right to, which is called shichacha, or when you gather stuff, the stuff that falls in what you gathered, you can't go back and pick that up. That's also for poor people as well. So we're talking about, so basically, the owner, even though the owner of this field is the person who bought the field, who planted the field, the owner of those corners are actually the poor people of your town, or oniyim. And of course, the Talmud is going to ask a question: how big are those corners? And a famous Mishnah in Peah says, Elu divarim she'ein lahem shi'or. These are among the things that do not have a measure, meaning there's a minimum, but there's no maximum. You can make those corners as big as you want, because all of that you're leaving basically for the poor. But you're saying to yourself that that doesn't belong to me. That belongs to the oniyim. And the real question that the Gemara is going to ask today is there a moment, if the corners of those fields really belong to the oniyim, to the poor people, is there a moment where they can actually declare that those corners of the field are hefker, meaning that anyone, no longer Oniim, but anyone in the town could go, and if they want to, really look very closely, they can actually, and they find something that the Oni didn't find, that they can actually take that stuff. And there is a moment, yes, they do. And one of the things we actually spoke about today was why would they do that? Why wouldn't they keep on coming back? And I think it's really actually, there's something psychologically significant about this, that a poor person does not have many ways to move through society and many ways to show luxury or show their magnanimity or their kind of graciousness to others. But actually, it's so interesting that we're saying not only are we giving the poor people the right to own this land, but we're giving them also the right at some point to say, I want to bequeath it or bestow it on others as well. Like, I mean, if you imagine how great we feel when we give a present to someone else, and you think, wow, a poor person who needs to have stuff around, a poor person who is always worried about giving stuff away because they think it will impact their survival, has an opportunity to actually give away, and how beautiful that is, that we can contemplate that act, and it's a real act of them being able to kind of assert their own humanity at that moment. So here we go. So that stuff that they collect, by the way, in the corners of the field, it's called gleanings, and the stuff from forgotten stuff is called gleanings. It's called leket, right? So leket is what's the stuff they're taking at the corners of the field. And of course, in the famous story of the Book of Ruth, what is she doing? She's actually going and getting the leket because she's poor, and she knows that that's what she can do. She can collect the shichacha, collect the forgotten grain, and collect from the corners of the field. So the cool thing about the Book of Ruth is actually it's Judaism in action. Okay, so the Talmud begins with the phrase me'ematai. We saw this actually before, this word, when we were looking at when do we say the Shema at night? Me'ematai, from when do we say the Shema at night? And that same word me'ematai is used here. And the phrase that's being asked here is me'ematai, are all people allowed to collect the leket? Meaning, at what point do the Oniim basically declare those corners of the field or whatever's left in the field as hefker? Okay, and the answer given is when the namushot come, right? Misha yelchu by hanimushot. Okay, and of course the Talmud's going to ask the question now. What's the Talmud going to ask question now? 7. The Talmud's going to ask, who are the nimushot? And they actually say, my nimushot, who are they? And we're going to get two different ideas of what the nimushot are. They're either older people who walk on canes, or they're leket takers who come after the leket takers. And the idea of walking on cane is like you're kind of bending down, and you can see really well if you're bending down. But basically, these are people that kind of either are kind of, so the poor people have come, then these other people who are also poor, who have a right to the field, have come. So two groups have actually scoured the field for all the stuff. And at that moment, we're saying that a poor person, the poor people are allowed to say, now this land is hefker, meaning anyone, not just poor, anyone can take this land. Anyone can come on this land and find food if they can find it, right? There's probably not much there, but if they want and put the effort in, it's hefker for them. And then the question we get here is, but ika oniim beduchta acharina. There are poor people in other places. Okay. So the big question here is, what does this mean? And who are we? Who does this statement seem to cause a challenge to? Is this statement actually proving Abaye correct, or is it proving Rava correct? So give me in number 8. Question 8 is who is it proving correct? What do you think it is? And question 9, kind of tell me why. Okay, so this took a while to kind of discuss in class, but here's basically what's happening. Basically, this Talmud is saying, I've got a field, and I've got Oniim who kind of live around that field and who know that field is at harvest time. They're going into the field at harvest time. They're getting their leket. They're getting the stuff from the corners of the field. They're getting their shichacha. And at one point, they're saying, okay, this is hefker. The whole town can actually have this. But now someone's coming and saying, wait a second, you're taking that, you're allowing anyone in the town to go into that field and take stuff and use stuff. But there are other Oniim in other places, maybe not in that town, but in a town nearby or far away. And they actually have not declared this Hefker. So who are we supporting then? According to that's question number 10. And here we can kind of look at it like this. We can look at it so here we have Kelvin's harvest, and here's a poor person coming into the coming there and doing their stuff. And then we'll say like the Nimushot are also coming, so we have a second group of poor people coming to kind of take all the stuff. And then at that point, the poor people of the town are saying, hey guys, anyone else from our town who wants this, they can come and take it. So here's a person, a normal person in the town, not a poor person, not an Oni, but just a person coming and saying, hey, the first group have come, the second group have come of poor people, and now they've declared this Hefker, so I can take it. But here's a person from another town, the town nearby or a town a few hours away, who's going to say, wait a second, I did not declare that Hefker. I'm coming to collect stuff from that town. But what do we know is when that Oni comes to the town and looks at the field, they're going to be like, of course, there's nothing left in this field. Anyone can take it. I'm declaring it Hefker too. So this is the classic case then of who is it supporting? That's question number 11. It's a classic case of supporting Rava, right? Because here's what it's going to look like. Well, it looks like all the poor people have already done their lekketing. I can take whatever's left. Hey, I'm a poor person from the town over. I just heard that Kelvin just harvested his field. If I hustle over there, I might just find some grub. So he hasn't declared things hefker. But when he sees it, the field, he's going to say, I'm Mia Asher. I'm declaring that hefker. All right. So the question now is, what can Abaye do to show that this is not a case of Yeush Shalomidat? Because according to this scenario, the only way it even works, and this guy is not a robber, is by declaring it Yeush Shalomidat. They're saying that Rava is correct. So what is Abaye going to say? And we kind of talked about this a bit in class, but what's your idea for number 12? What is Abaye? What's some idea of what Abaye can do? And here's what Abaye can do. Abaye says, Kevan de Ika onim hacha hanach meikara ayush mea esh amre oniim tahatam milakte le. So he's saying because there are oniim there in that town, those oniim that are in other towns will from the very get-go say, once they hear about the harvest happening at Kelvin's field, they're going to say, there's no way I'm going to get there in time to get in this stuff. The oniim in that town are going to get all the good stuff. I'm actually going to declare this hefker because there's just no way. Oniim dehatam, the onis that are there, the poor people that are there, they're going to do they're going to get all the leket that's there. They're going to get to basically all the good stuff that's there. So in a sense, what Rava is doing is the following: he's moving this the oni and his from the other towns. He's moving it all the way up to this point that when he hears about the harvest, that he's going to actually declare it hefker. And so now, when this guy goes in and collects it, he's saying, not only did the people in my town declare this hefker, but I know that any other oniim that had claims on the Peah and the Shichacha, the Leket of this area, they've also declared Hefker, so I can never be a robber. And that is where we end. So we can go back to, again, we tried to prove Rava correct. We didn't prove him correct because Abaye's idea could also hold. And that's it. Okay, that's the end of our lesson for the day. Send me your answers, and then we're done.